Thanks for joining us. And so today we're going to go over the Cyata Labs platform that we host on our website at Union General, and want to show you how quick and simple it is to actually get a cyber quote. It is a growing necessity now for all businesses, anybody taking any kind of financial transactions, storing any data. It's certainly something that you're seeing a lot more in the news. Usually you only hear about the large companies, large corporations that get hit with cyber attacks or breaches of information. But typically, as Alec can attest for, they start smaller, usually just to get in to like the medium-sized businesses and then to the large ones. But you don't hear about the small ones. And typically on a cyber breach, the amount of loss is more than which that company can recover from. So it's very important to cover those kinds of losses for any kind of data breach or cyber liability claim. And insurance has been made easier to get in this field. And Cyata Labs brings a fantastic comparative rater platform that we can host, where you can go on, enter very limited information, takes you about 5 minutes, and you get a comparative quote on all the top cyber liability carriers. And from there, you can complete a digital application and request binding all in one motion, and you can get a binder back right away. So it is a very smooth process that you'll be able to offer competitive quotes for cyber liability. And what we also want to do is share the importance of some of these factors of why they might need it, so you can better explain to your clients, this is why you should consider purchasing this. Even though it's not required, you should really consider this, and here's some reasons why. And they can start thinking about it. Maybe when you offer the quote, it won't be this year that they buy it, or maybe it'll be midterm of their liability, their business office policy, or maybe the next renewal. But it's good to plant the seed, get them thinking about it, and you have good options for them. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to Alex so he can explain a little bit about who he is, where he's from, and what we're going to talk about today. And he's going to jump on and show you the platform, how to access it through Union General, and what that looks like, and then what all that information means on the other end.
Thank you, Ben. And first and foremost, just wanted to thank you and everybody else for the time today. I know, especially with the holidays just around the corner, time is certainly limited. So thankful to have the opportunity to present for everybody. And Cyata, as you'd mentioned, Ben, is a digital brokerage carrier marketplace, comparative rater, a lot of different terms for it. Ultimately, it is the best way to be able to quote and bind small, mid-sized, monoline cyber business. And in a day and age where insurers want quote options yesterday, the need for quick turnaround but effective tools is at an all-time high. And so really that's what we look to provide. So a little bit about myself kind of before we jump into the actual demonstration is I come from the wholesale space myself, and worked at a wholesaler out of Los Angeles for a few years, running a business development team. And we had partnered with Cyata, probably 2 years ago or so. So before I ever joined, and it came at a time when we were really just starting to see some movement in the cyberspace. And so I focused on working with our retail agents, kind of conveying the importance of cyber and the value of the tools that we had at their disposal. And so fortunately today I'm able to partner with Union General and be able to kind of really go through the same value proposition of how you are all able to not only quote this kind of business but more effectively write it. And you'll see the value proposition built into different facets of that process. But as my second grade teacher always said, show, don't tell. So I'll just go ahead and jump right into the demonstration. And also, if any questions pop up, feel free to utilize the chat feature. We can always look to circle back at the end, or if it's very timely, we can certainly look to address it. And we'll have Ben kind of moderate that as we move forward. All right. So the way to access the Cyata tool will be through the Union General website. So if you go to uniongeneralinsurance.com and you go to online raters, you'll see the CyberNOW compare button. that'll pull you right into the Cyata platform. And so while our distribution model is 100% wholesale only, select agents do have access to this tool. So as we're going to kind of cover today, this will be accessible via the Union General website. But what Ben mentioned is this is certainly the fastest way to obtain not only a quote comparison, but a full-fledged proposal pack embedded with various educational pieces, sample policy forms, full quote letters, full-on applications, all embedded into the proposal pack, which gives you now a tool to better convey not only the importance of cyber, but a better way for your insureds to get a better well-rounded focus on how they can write that most effectively. But from there, what we'll look to do is this will be your dashboard when you log in. So you'll put in your name, email address, your agency name, and that's how Ben and his team are going to be able to monitor the submission flow and be able to communicate with the necessary individuals. From there, you'll look to input the two different limit retention options. You can certainly look to do a singular limit retention option. If you're looking to do multiple options, that functionality will be in the hands of the folks at Union General. So say you want a third, fourth, fifth option, you can always reach out to them and they'll be able to easily provide you with that. From there, what we'll look to do is input the basic information. So we're going to start with the company name as well as the state that the risk is domiciled in. And what we're then going to do is through the Dun & Bradstreet database, it'll pull up all of the associated companies with that particular name and state. So from there, you'll look to find that proper listing. Once you've tracked it down, we're looking at the Starbucks Corp out in Laguna Niguel. You'll go ahead and select that. Now, keep in mind if it's a new venture, maybe it's not in the DMB database, you can always enter the basic information manually. This typically just helps to reduce some of the keystrokes moving forward. But if it doesn't show up, you can always just click this enter manually instead button, and from there it'll pull you over to the next page. So what we're looking at here is already about half the information was pulled over. So you'll see the DMB pull over the company name, website, NAICS code, as well as the address. So best practice number one, I always recommend folks is, all carriers across cyber are extremely inundated with back-end endorsements. And so I always like to tell folks it's best to try to alleviate any of those back-end issues on the front end. And so that starts with just confirming that the information that is presented on the screen is going to be accurate. So between the company name, the website, the address, even if it's like a little letter number change, it's always gonna be good just to make sure that lines up. And then I think most importantly is going to be the NAICS code. So this is the industry classification code that the carriers will rate off of. And this is a suggested code based on the company description and all the information that's embedded in DNB. So it'll always be important just to confirm that this information and this code is accurate. A couple different ways to get to the desired NAICS code. So one is simply going to be starting to type out the classification. So we started to type in limited service restaurants. You'll see here it pulls up that 6-digit code for you. You're able to select that and proceed. The other way to do it, and this I don't typically recommend it just because it's a little bit more tedious and it kind of goes against the value prop of time efficiency, but it certainly gets you to the same result, is going to be using the industry tree that's built into the system. So this simply just breaks down all the different industries and then the subclasses built into that until you ultimately get to the code that you're looking for. My main recommendation is always go with the tried and true Google search. So you'll see here I cleared the search bar. Then you go ahead and click search Google. And from there, you'll go ahead and input the classification. And the NAICS website most likely will go ahead and pull that 6-digit code for you. As you'll see, this is the same one that matched what was pulled over originally when we started the submission. Once that information is confirmed, you're only going to need to input a couple of other key pieces of information. So the carriers really want to know the revenue. So revenue threshold will be important. We'll touch on that in just a moment. So you'll go ahead and input that for last fiscal year. If there's any changes projected for the upcoming year, you'll go ahead and update that as necessary. Carriers want to know if they currently carry standalone cyber. There is no penalty if they don't have it. I know certain lines require you to have X amount of years of coverage in order for those specific carriers to consider. That's not how it is for our carriers. So you'll go ahead and just input the expiration date if you have it. But as I mentioned, if they don't, no harm, no foul. Arguably the most important question, and this is something that's certainly more recent in the cyberspace relative to new exposures, is going to be multi-factor authentication. So carriers want to know, does your insured have MFA implemented for email access, remote access, and network administration? And I'm sure you guys have seen this in the past, whether it's for emails, you'll get that notification saying you just wanted to confirm that you're actually trying to sign into your account, or if some of you use Duo, that's another form of multi-factor authentication. But there's a multitude of ways to implement it. What I've found surprisingly is not, I would say like the majority of folks don't have MFA in place. And I think the common misconception there is not only is it very expensive to implement, but it's also very time consuming. So one of the things that we've done is we went ahead and created an MFA one sheet for you. So by clicking this link here, it'll pull up this resource, and it talks a bit about what MFA is, what the exposure is. I think most importantly for your clients, how they can implement it. So whether it be the Microsoft Suite products, G Suite products, we have built-in links that'll show your insured how to implement it for free, just a step-by-step process to do that. And what's really nice about that is not only are they covering their tracks a little bit more and help prevent certain MFA related exposures, but also it satisfies the requirement of the carriers that do require MFA to be in place in order to offer terms. So it's kind of a two birds, one stone situation there.
Hey, Alex, if they are to go down that path of like, how do I set up MFA? How long does that, do you know how long that takes for a customer to set that up for themselves? Is it pretty quick?
Yeah, that's a good question. Typically that task would be delegated to a tech admin individual at the company. The smaller business, somebody who's not as tech savvy, it could take a little bit longer, but it's a 1 day kind of implementation process if you're using the Microsoft Suite products or the G Suite implementation tool. But yeah, it's not very arduous. I always like to say, like, if I can figure it out and I'm not terribly tech savvy, then most folks can typically implement that.
Okay.
So the way that this will work is, as I mentioned, certain carriers, there's I believe 3 on platform right now that currently require MFA to be in place in order to offer terms. So we give you the option to select yes or no. For when the option is no, or the answer is no, the carriers that do require it, obviously they will not provide terms. Now, if you select I don't know, the way that this will work is the presumptions, which are the security control questions that each carrier has. For the ones that do require it, their default will be yes. So one thing to note, this is best practice number 2, is kind of conveying what are the presumption-based quotes versus the bindable quotes to your insureds. And while the presumption-based quotes typically don't change, MFA is going to be one of the main factors that can move the needle in any which direction. So something just to be cognizant of, the carriers that do require MFA, if you select I don't know, they'll just want to confirm on the back end that MFA is in place. If not, what will happen is, come completion of the application, you'd be notified that the terms are no longer available due to the MFA requirement. So one way to kind of navigate that is, if you find out a week, 2 weeks later, you can always let somebody at Union General know. They can simply go in and update those quote options for you, and that goes the same for any of the other basic information, any security control questions. They can always go in and adjust that, and that would update terms if there are any kind of changes.
So yeah, I think, Alec, what I would say too regarding the multi-factor authentication is that I'm reading more and more about how insurance companies are starting to require this more often. those that were not a year ago are starting to recommend it, and those that were recommending it are starting to require it. So, to try to sell this type of insurance to somebody that's unsure, if you want to feel like you're looking out for their best interests, recommending this, it's better for their business, it's better for their security anyway. This could help you sell the product too, just by making good suggestions that's good for their business.
That's a really great point. And we find a lot of folks will leverage that MFA one sheet as that additional educational piece for their insureds, and folks typically are well receptive of that kind of information. But beyond that, not only is it looking to be more of a contractual requirement for companies, but on the flip side, carriers are moving in that direction where a year ago MFA was purely optional. Now 40% of our carriers require it. Two of our main ones are going to be requiring it come the new year. So that's really where the market is trending, is bolstering those tools to mitigate future exposures.
Yeah, and if you want to know what that looks like, if you've ever been on a website and they ask you for your cell phone number or an email address to confirm it's really you, then they immediately send you a 6-digit code or something, and then you plug that into the next screen and it says, okay, this is you, and it lets you continue. That's multi-factor authentication.
So I just wanted to note really quickly the appetite for the platform. Really, we're built for small, mid-size, flow type business. So what I mean is, anything under about 50 million in revenue will be a pretty good sweet spot for most of our carriers. Some can go a bit higher than that. Some will be a little bit lower, but you're certainly going to get the most out of the platform, kind of being within that revenue threshold range. But beyond that, it's not really great for anything with like claim activity, open claims, closed claims paid that paid out more than 25,000. Again, these are all different factors where you want to consider if it would make sense to put through the platform or just take direct to Union General, who can kind of disseminate that for some of the trickier risks. But then beyond that, some classes that don't fit, cannabis-related risks, online gambling, adult content, as well as MSP. Municipalities are also a little tricky right now, just with the way the market's situated. But beyond that, the appetite is quite vast. We contract with 8 different carriers, and so with that, the appetite is quite extensive. So what'll happen from here is you'll go ahead and click on Get Quotes. You'll confirm your information as well as the limit retention options that you're looking to get back. You'll click Confirm. It'll thank you for the submission. And then in about 10-15 minutes, you'll receive this email. So it'll be an automated email from Cyata, and it'll thank you for the submission. It'll tell you what's included in the email, what the next steps are. So just reviewing the options, going through, completing the application, and then reaching out to Union General when you're looking to bind. But most importantly, it has these 2 documents here. So the How to Secure Coverage Guide, which we'll touch on just really quickly, really just talks about kind of what are the next steps in the process once you've completed a submission. So it lets you, kind of reiterates, completing the application that's built into the proposal pack. Once the application is completed, if you use a digital app, that'll automatically upload into our system. So it helps to mitigate a couple of manual steps for the folks at Union General. And then from there, once the insured says, hey, we're ready to go, you'll simply send over an email to Union General looking to confirm the bind request, and then from there they'll go ahead and process that and provide you with the binder and the proposal. We'll talk about like some of the carrier expectations in just a moment, but most importantly, I wanted to cover the proposal pack. So as we discussed, this is one of the main value propositions of Cyata. Not only is it a side-by-side comparison of all the different quote options from the carriers willing to play ball on this particular risk, but also embedded are really great educational pieces. And this was something that I found in my time at my prior wholesaler, and even now more so than ever. Insureds really are looking for resources to learn more about the exposure of cyber and how they can go about mitigating future exposures. And so we'll kind of talk about why this is more important than just simply getting a couple of quote options. That's the traditional route for a lot of folks. And if you've gone to other wholesale partners in the past to write this kind of business. That's typically what most folks are providing. So with Union General and the CyberNOW platform, you're able to get something in a matter of minutes that is going to be fully ready to present to your client for them to be able to make the best and most well-rounded decision on, if cyber insurance is really important for them or not. So we'll kind of just walk through this briefly, talks again about the next steps. Can't stress it enough. The information for the processes on the back end, we have it listed quite a few places, but you can always feel free to reach out to your folks at Union General for any kind of clarity or any kind of questions. They're going to be the ones that can help assist with that. But looking at the proposal pack, as I mentioned, we have a side-by-side comparison, breaks down the different limit and retention options, as well as the different carrier options. So you'll see here, we put some of the pertinent information of the carrier specific information up on the front end for you to review. And then we get into the sub-limit breakdown between first party, third party, and cybercrime. And one of the things I really like about this is even just these, the coverages here, we put brief definitions, again, really looking to bolster the understanding and the education of the insured, so they have a better idea of really what they're looking at. I mean, if you would have asked me, 5-10 years ago, what bricking is relative to insurance, I would think maybe you're talking about something for like contractor insurance or something. I have no idea that this pertained to cyber insurance. And so we want to be able to provide that kind of clarity for the insured up on the front end. So scrolling down a bit further here, we're looking at the full cost breakdown. You'll see we have the premium, carrier fee, broker fee, processing fee. We'll also go ahead and calculate the surplus lines, taxes, and fees for you. But beyond that, most importantly, you'll see just below that, we have the sample policy, full quote letter, and then application built in. So what I recommend, and this would be best practice number 3, is always look to leverage the digital application. As I mentioned, it helps to remove some of the manual steps on the back end for the folks at Union General. But most importantly, it helps to mitigate any kind of potential human error, whether it be on the side of the insured or Union General or anybody in between. So I'm not going to get too ingrained into the actual application. It's simply a digital app. It's going to be the carrier specific application. If any of you have used DocuSign in the past, that's how you're going to be able to kind of go ahead and complete this app. But if you have some of the insureds who really just rather print it out, fill it out by hand, send it back in, we do have that PDF application built in as well. So scrolling down a bit further here, I want to get into the good stuff of the proposal pack. So as I mentioned, this doubles as an educational tool. We'll start with a really well-rounded FAQ sheet. So I'm sure a lot of these questions have come up in the past if you've had this cyber discussion with your insured. So we look to provide that kind of clarity for them. And then I think most importantly, the claim scenario. So this has got to be my favorite part about the proposal pack. So based on that NEICS code that was generated at time of quoting, that'll actually determine the verbiage used in these 5 scenarios. So what's really nice is that we'll break down a situation that's extremely relevant to your insured and to that industry class. We'll break down the situation, and we'll even note the potential cost impact for each of those exposures and which line that's going to be hitting. And then at the end, you'll see we build out a resolution. So in case there is this kind of exposure and they have a claim arise, they have a better idea of how to handle that. So we have 5 really great examples for ransomware, outdated software, social engineering, lost hardware, and former rogue employee. So these are the top 5 exposures that really any insured faces relative to the cyberspace. And so again, we want to be able to provide that kind of clarity and that kind of understanding as to really the actual financial impact that this could have on a business. Beyond that, we get into a cyber insurance glossary. So really, again, just trying to hit home on a lot of the pertinent terminology used in cyber insurance. From there, we'll go into a cybersecurity glossary, regulatory glossary. And then for you, the retail agent, we've built in an acknowledgement of rejected coverage letter. And so this is something that I've found to be really effective, especially for insureds who are on the fence about, purchasing insurance. Like, oh, I don't know if I really need it. I don't know if this really pertains to me. You at least are now covering your E&O by having them sign this acknowledgement of rejected coverage letter. But what we've also seen, the feedback that I've received is insurance typically will take a second scroll through the proposal pack after seeing this, because like, oh shoot, there might actually be a significant exposure here. Let me go ahead and review this information another time.
We've used this on other lines of coverage in the past, employment practices and other coverage that's not mandatory, but heavily recommended. And it works really well. It actually makes them consider and review what you're offering them. And when they put a signature to it, it kind of makes them think about it a little bit harder on what they're rejecting to see if they really want it. So that's a great sheet to have.
Exactly. Beyond that, I did want to touch on a bit more about the back end expectations, just so moving forward you have a broader idea of what happens post quoting, right? So the process starts with the submission process. You then have the insured review, the proposal pack. Once you've settled on a quote option that fits your insured's needs, you'll go in, complete the digital application PDF app. From there, you'll go and send it to the folks at Union General. As I mentioned, with the digital app, it'll automatically upload confirmed presumptions on the platform. And so all that will be needed would be an email request to bind coverage. So what I want to talk about is the carrier specific expectations. Every carrier is not built the same. The typical turnaround time that we're seeing is going to be for a binder and policy is going to be about 24 to 48 hours. So 48 hours is certainly going to be on the far end of the spectrum. A lot of folks can usually turn around same day, but I want to note that it can take up to 2 full business days for that binder to turn around. That is with the carriers currently on platform. So that's going to be Cowbell, Prime 100, Coalition, admitted and non-admitted, at Bay, CFC, Hiscox, and we have Tokyo Marine as well as Brit on platform. They're currently paused just because we're fixing some things internally with them as they're expanding their appetite. I will note that historically Tokyo Marine has been the far end of the spectrum when it comes to binder turnaround. So while they're extremely competitive, their appetite is broad and their premiums are certainly top tier. The binder turnaround time for them has typically been 5 to 6 days. We hope that once they are back on within the next few weeks, the binder turnaround would be a little bit different, but that information will be conveyed to the folks at Union General. So I'm sure they'll pass that down as we get that update there.
Also want to point out, Alex, in this example, you might see the premiums are kind of high, and I noticed that you're using a $10,000 broker fee as an example.
Oh yeah, no, that was
that is not our fee. We don't charge. There's no $10,000 fee. Just
yeah, definitely. With some wholesale folks out there, it can be pretty steep. I know Union General is certainly much more competitive in that realm. But yeah, I was kind of like looking at that, wondering why the approximated costs are so high. I think I was just messing around on this proposal here, but yeah, good catch. Certainly not that high. What's really nice too is even if it is a tougher class, being able to have access to a multitude of markets, you're really going to get an idea of where that particular risk sits in terms of overall difficulty to write. So not only is this a great tool for you guys to be able to write the business, but it's also a really strong market indicator for the insured. So you can use that to your advantage when, if an insured comes back and say, maybe you are looking at a $15,000 premium, $20,000 premium, say, hey, look, we have taken this to the most competitive cyber insurance carriers in the marketplace. This is what the market is showing for this particular risk. So it helps you to cover your bases as well. I know we're kind of getting to the end of the time period here. Ben, is there anything specifically that you wanted to cover beyond the proposal pack? I know we touched on kind of the back end expectations. and then the overall functionality of the quoting tool. Is there any question that you kind of wanted to address that maybe we didn't already touch on?
Yeah, just the binding process, filling out the digital application that goes straight into Cyada's system. We are then notified when that's been completed and we just need the bind request from you. So we know that you want to move forward with it, and then payment. There is no direct bill in the cyber world right now, at least with none of these carriers. And I don't know if that's ever going to change, but it doesn't exist right now. We do accept premium financing though at Union General, and that's a way to pay the policy off in full as far as Cyada is concerned and the carriers are concerned. Beyond that, I think the claim scenarios, the impact of losses and types of losses are great selling points, and the multi-factor authentication recommendation and education that you can provide on that, which are all provided in each quote. Those are great selling tools. We'll follow up with some information after this, send it to you directly so that you can review these things before it actually comes up in a live scenario. But yeah, we want to help you sell a good product and protect the insureds. We'd like them to carry the protection and the understanding of how to avoid certain types of risks and be prepared if they are attacked anyway by selling cyber. And it's not all just about price. It's about why do they need it? Why are they doing this? And what can they do to avoid certain types of losses? And all of that information is provided in each quote, which is a great tool to have.
Yeah, that's a great point, kind of just to piggyback off of that. This is certainly cyber insurance has been around, but the exposure that we're seeing in today's space is truly unprecedented, and it's a much newer product out there. So while the exposure hasn't been higher than it is now, folks typically aren't still comfortable with what's included in it or why they need it. And so that's why we build out those additional educational pieces to not only help the insured, but also to help you, the retail agent, feel more comfortable having those conversations with the insured and talking about the exposures and the importance of this type of coverage. So if nothing else, certainly use those examples, use the proposal as that educational tool for your clients. But beyond that, Union General, they're going to be able to help you out every step of the way. If you have specific questions, they're always going to be your go-to. They connect with us and the carrier. So if there's any policy specific or carrier related questions, certainly reach out to them as well. They'll be more than happy to assist on that. But certainly open up to any questions, but just wanted to thank everybody again for the time today. And Ben, thank you for bringing me on.
Yeah. And actually, one other thing I want to cover, if you do have an email address that is just a free account like Gmail, those email addresses, those accounts are not allowed on the platform for reasons of security at Cyada. I guess, we want to avoid potential bots forming accounts and just flooding the system and crashing it. So in that case, there is a single sheet that that's been created by Cyada that we can provide, where everything that's asked on the platform, that 1 or 2 pages that you go through, it's on one sheet that you can complete, send to us, and then we can enter the quote for you. And we'll still get that back very, very quickly to get that process started. So that is covered if you have trouble. We've come across this scenario before, and it's actually worked out really well, and I believe turned into a bind all within probably a 24-hour period. So that's covered. This is what it looks like, as you can see on the screen right now, the cyber worksheet. Not a lot of information, covers the bases, gives us enough to enter in the system for you and get your quote right away. And yeah, as Alec was saying too, this is we keep saying it's a newer product. I think in terms of the popularity of people buying it, newer, but I've been trying to sell this product for over 10 years now, and mostly it's been talking about it. And now it's, a lot of seeds have been planted over the years. Now, when we're talking about it, I'm seeing a little more action being taken because it's become more of a reality. These claims are really starting to take off, and the risk involved is not slowing down, it's speeding up. Anything with technology speeds up faster and faster every year. And this is one of those things. So I think you have a lot more luck selling it now than you would 10 years ago, by far. But newer product, yes, in popularity, but it's been around for a long time. A lot of coverage involved and a lot of safety involved in these policies. So I think you'll have better luck selling it now. So on that note, I guess let's just bring this thing to a close. We'll follow up with some information, give you those tools in an email, and we are available. Please reach out if you have any questions. Give me a call or send me an email, and we're happy to help you along the way, every step. Thanks again for your time. Happy holidays, everyone. Have a great day.
Everybody.